Hi everyone, E here with E's list of things you should give a crap about this week. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to keep it short and sweet this week, just 2 topics. Last week was far too long. You guys paid for that, so I'm sorry. But this week we'll keep it nice and short. First up in tech news, Google caused a little ripple when they released this week the ethnicity and gender stats on their workforce. So, for those of you who are wondering if the white man still rules the world, the answer is yes, he does. Now he rules it on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley. So, again, I've read about this in several places, but how can you resist the USA Today's pretty graphics? You can't resist these graphics. So, anyway, Google's tech workforce, and to clarify, this is their tech workforce. So I don't know the extent to which they're including administrative, HR, sort of operations people in these numbers. But among their tech workers, 60% are white, 34% are Asian. Okay, so yes, if you can do a little bit of math, that's 94%. So basically, it's a wrap, because that means there's 6% left for everybody else. So of that 6%, 2% are Hispanic, 1% is black. Blacks are apparently now the 1%ers when it comes to Google, and 3% are mixed race. I suspect that of that 3% that are mixed race, 2.8% are mixed with white and Asian. So you think what you want to think. When it comes to the gender mix, Google is 83% male and 17% female, which of course matches up perfectly. It's a perfect representation of the males and females in the general population and in nature. Oh wait, no it's not, because there are 51% women to 49% men, pretty constant over time throughout the population. And why? Because nature's smart, and you need just a couple more women because they have the babies. Hello. Anyway, so Google put these out. I mean, that's pretty good that they put it out, and now they kind of ratchet up the pressure on other Silicon Valley big tech companies to say, you know, open your drawers and show us your numbers too. So we'll see what they come up with. I mean, is this a big deal or not? I guess it depends on your perspective. For organizational implications with respect to those, and for companies who are global international companies, a lack of diversity really can put you in a position where you run the risk of having an organization that's insular and that's a little bit one-dimensional in their thinking, and this of course will not serve you well when it comes to global competition. We'll see what the implications are long-term for the big tech companies in Silicon Valley, because again, I'd be shocked if Facebook, well, who else we have out there? Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, all of them, if they came out and their numbers were markedly different than Google. Maybe slightly. I wouldn't be surprised if LinkedIn's numbers are slightly different, but most of them probably are not going to be markedly different than Google. Because, well, here's how you know most of them aren't markedly different than Google. Because if they were, we already know about it because they'd be touting it. So we'll see what happens with it, but there are long-term implications, and we'll see what comes of it. Second and last thing is really this one's world and U.S. news. President Obama this week shook up the foreign policy world with his speech at West Point, where he articulated when and how the U.S. should be engaged in foreign conflicts and foreign affairs. And it really is a significant departure from what we've seen as official policy and sort of approach over the last 10 years. It kind of, I mean, how significant a sort of stance it is, or articulation of where the U.S. should be standing, to me, is right up there with the Monroe Doctrine. And the Monroe Doctrine, of course, is from the 19th century when President James Monroe said to the European nations that that the U.S. would take any further colonization or meddling by the European nations in state affairs in North and South America as acts of aggression and respond accordingly. In other words, he was saying, don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. You guys stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours, but you come over here and there's going to be a problem. Now, of course, when you're talking foreign affairs, people always want to talk hawk or dove, dove, peace, and hawk, you're attacking whatever. So, if the Monroe Doctrine is a very hawkish stand, then I would say in his West Point speech, President Obama was saying, Monroe, I see your hawk and I raise you a dove, because it is a dove speech, but I don't think that having a dovish approach to foreign policy is a sign of weakness per se. So here is my translation of some of the key points of what the key points or factors that Obama was making in his speech and this because this was a declaration of foreign policy. So first off, he was saying, yes, okay, I'm going to acknowledge the world is jacked up. It really is. But we can't go around fighting everybody's battles. And sometimes when we step in to try and help somebody, we hurt them more than we help them. And it's an acknowledgement of that fact. The second thing was that the U.S. will get involved militarily if there's a direct U.S. interest at risk. And in fact, even in those instances, a military response is a last resort. So in other words, what he's saying is, you talk about my mama, or you gonna get a beat down. Just know, because the boom is coming. However, if you talk about my boy's mama, my best friend's mama, look, I'm not gonna co-sign on it. I don't like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna come out, gun swinging. So, can of whoop ass stays on the shelf if it's my boy's mama. Again, I don't like it. I may send you a nasty letter about it, but I'm not gonna bring out all the guns, right? Okay, so the other piece is in terms of how to deal with some of these other conflicts that the U.S. may not get actively involved in, well, militarily involved in. What he's saying is you can get more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. And so he wants to do that sort of work more through diplomacy and through, let's be honest, he's saying diplomacy, but we also know what that means when it comes to foreign affairs stuff is back channel kind of work at times and clandestine stuff. You got to work behind the scenes. And so, I mean, I get it. So I wouldn't be, obviously the State Department is going to take a much larger role to the extent they're going to implement this other style of approaching foreign policy. In addition to the CIA. The CIA was probably like, yeah, buddy, because they know their role will increase as the role that the military plays decreases, because the fact is, it's not as if problems aren't still out there. And again, it's one thing to say explicitly issues that affect directly U.S. interests, but of course there are lots of issues that have indirect effects and implications, and it's not as if the U.S. won't have a horse in those races, but again, I'm sure it will be more working back channels and clandestine sort of work. So this really is a stark departure from what has been the style and mindset especially of the Bush era approach to exporting a brand of U.S. freedom and democracy. I mean, when you think back to the Bush era sort of things, it was definitely not just, oh, we want you to have the taste of freedom and democracy. We want you to taste it with a McDonald's burger and a shake and fries, you know. So, we'll see. To me, this makes a lot of sense for two major reasons. One, the world really is a hot-ass mess. I don't say that in a callous way. I'm just like, the world is a hot-ass mess. So if the U.S. were to try to fight everyone's battles, where do you draw the line? If you give your clothes, the clothes off your back to everyone in need, suddenly you find yourself standing there butt naked without anything to wear. So you have to draw a line. It might as well be, if you punch me in the face, I'm going to kick you in the balls. And that's pretty much the line that he's drawn in terms of saying, you know, U.S. direct interest. So the second reason is that today's conflict ain't your grandpa's conflict, right? This is not the Vietnam War is a little bit different, but this isn't the Korean War. This isn't World War II. Our military is designed for nation-state wars. Sure, we still have some modern-day nation-state villains, right? Like Putin or Kim Jong-un. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but you know, North Korea. So we have some individual people that would be the modern-day Stalin-style people that represent a country. And those people can be the target of people's feeling like, oh, you know, this country is doing this. But by and large, the conflicts today that or threats to U.S. security and interests, okay, threats to U.S. security and interests today are much more fluid and nebulous. I mean, they're you know, small pockets of people that are part of Al-Qaeda or other groups like that just have ideological issues with the U.S. And for example, okay, perfect example, you take Myanmar or let's take Myanmar. Okay, they as a country may not have a direct issue with the U.S. or India. India as a country doesn't have a direct issue with the U.S. Are there groups of people in India or Pakistan that have an issue with the U.S. that may be planning, you know, bombs or threats against the U.S. in some way? Well, of course there are, but we can't hold the whole government responsible for that. We can't invade a whole country to take out some people that the government's like, yo, we didn't even know they were here. We don't have nothing to do with that. Why are you bombing our stuff, right? And so that's the problem with modern day threats to our security and interests, and why I really think that it's true. We can't continue to approach things the way that we have. It kind of reminds me of the way that the settlers, when the Europeans first came to North America for what's now the United States, you know, they were doing this British style of rank and file sort of row fighting, because of course when they fought with France or whoever else in Europe, it was sort of a gentleman's agreement about how you fight. And instead the Indians are like, the Native Americans that were already here in North America are looking at them like, this is how you guys are going to fight? I'm going to be up in that tree and I'm going to take you out. I mean, you know, so yeah, look, if the U.S. or if the settlers from Europe didn't have guns and not fight, well, they still didn't fight fair. Whatever, whole other thing. But anyway, my point is just that it's two different ways of approaching a conflict. And right now, the way that we have been set up in terms of the military to approach a conflict isn't really set up for the kinds of conflicts we find ourselves having to respond to in this day and age. So, bottom line, with only 2.5 years left in his term, we'll see how cemented Obama's foreign policy stance will become, or if his successor will continue down the same path. But if it gets even partially ingrained, it will be a significant shift from the last 10 years, and in my opinion, probably a more sustainable way to approach foreign affairs and conflicts in the long term. So, anyway, I think that's all I got for today, and not too long. All right, have a good weekend. Take it easy.